In the glossy world of pharmaceutical development, appearances can be deceiving. Behind the sleek corporate headquarters and polished presentations, real power often lies in the quiet spaces between test tubes and data points. That's where you find me, or at least, that's where Nexus Pharmaceuticals thought they trapped me. My name is Dr. Chen, but at Nexus, they just called me the lab tech. For 2 years, I played that role perfectly, keeping my head down among the beakers and centrifuges while documenting every corner they cut, every protocol they broke, every data point they conveniently overlooked in their rush to get their miracle drug to market. What they didn't know was that my other office, the one at the FDA's Department of Drug Safety and Compliance, had a very different nameplate: Director of Special Investigations, Pharmaceutical Division. These results are concerning, I said quietly, looking up from my microscope at Dr. Marcus Reynolds, Nexus's head of research. The cellular degradation rates are significantly higher than reported. Marcus barely glanced at my data. You're just a lab tech, Diana. Leave the analysis to the real scientists. I made a note in my official-looking lab notebook and a very different note in my encrypted FDA file. 2 more weeks, and I have everything I needed to shut down their entire operation. The problem was, I didn't have 2 weeks. Big news. Marcus burst into the lab the next morning, practically vibrating with excitement. They're moving up the FDA submission. Board meeting tomorrow to finalize the approval package. My heart rate picked up, moving it up. But the long-term toxicity studies are fine, he cut me off. The preliminary data is strong enough. With fast-track approval, we could have NX-2477 on the market by next quarter. NX-2477. Their supposed miracle drug for autoimmune disorders. What the glossy promotional materials didn't show were the concerning patterns I'd documented in cell stability tests, the anomalies in liver function studies, the data points that kept disappearing from official reports. Dr. Reynolds, I tried again. The latest batch showed significant. That's enough, Diana. His voice hardened. Know your place. Lab techs don't question senior researchers. As he strode out, I sent a coded message to my real team at the FDA. Timeline compromised. Meeting tomorrow. Stand by. That evening, I stayed late, supposedly running routine samples. Actually, I was completing my final documentation. 2 years of meticulous investigation, building a case that would stop a dangerous drug from reaching the market and expose the corporate negligence behind it. My phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Sarah Martinez, my deputy at the FDA. Team's ready, waiting for your signal. I thought about the real labs at the FDA, where I'd spent years building my reputation as one of the country's top pharmaceutical safety experts, about how Nexus had been so eager to hire a quiet, unassuming lab tech that they'd never dug deep enough into my background to find my other credentials. The next morning, I arrived early, wearing my usual plain lab coat and practical shoes. The boardroom was already filling with executives in expensive suits, all talking excitedly about stock options and market projections. CEO Richard Davidson stood at the head of the table, practically glowing. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow we submit NX-2477 for FDA approval. Our fast-track application is ready, the data is solid, and in 6 months we'll be looking at a $300 million drug launch. That's when I made my move. Actually, I said from my quiet corner, there might be a problem with the submission. The room fell silent. Davidson's smile turned cold. I wasn't aware lab technicians were invited to this meeting. She's not, Marcus jumped in. Diana, you need to leave. Now. I stayed put, pulling out my documentation. The cellular degradation rates in the latest trials show concerning patterns. The liver function studies have unexplained gaps, and the long-term toxicity data. Enough. Davidson's face had turned red. Who do you think you are to question our research? Our top scientists have verified everything. Have they? I kept my voice calm. Or have they just verified what you wanted to see? Marcus stood up, pointing at the door. This is ridiculous. Security will escort you out. And needless to say, you're fired. I smiled, reaching for my phone. Before you do that, you might want to check who actually runs the FDA's Drug Safety and Compliance Division. The blood drained from Marcus's face as I pulled up my FDA credentials. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should have been watching all along. The boardroom erupted into chaos as I displayed my FDA credentials on the screen. Dr. Diana Chen, Director of Special Investigations, Pharmaceutical Division. The title seemed to hang in the air like an executioner's axe. "This is impossible," Davidson sputtered. "You're a lab tech." "I was a lab tech," I corrected, nodding to my phone. On cue, FDA agents began filing into the room. Now I'm the person who decides whether NX-2477 ever sees the light of day. Marcus slumped into his chair, papers falling from nerveless fingers. 2 years. You've been investigating us for 2 years? Ever since we received whistleblower reports about data manipulation in your previous drug trials. I started connecting my laptop to the presentation screen. Though I have to thank you for making my job easier. It's amazing what people will say in front of someone they think is just a lab tech. Whatever you think you found, Davidson tried to regain control. Our research is solid. The drug works. Does it? I pulled up my first slide. Let's talk about batch 23B, specifically, the liver toxicity data that mysteriously disappeared from the final report. The color drained from Marcus's face. How did you? I ran those tests myself, remember? You told me to clean up the data. I kept the original results. I switched to the next slide. And the cellular degradation rates you ordered me to recalculate. I kept those too, along with the email where you specifically instructed me to adjust the numbers. Davidson's expensive lawyer, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up. "Mrs. Chen." "Dr. Chen," I corrected. PhD in pharmaceutical chemistry, master's in molecular biology, and 15 years at the FDA. But please continue calling me the lab tech. It's worked so well for you so far. The lawyer blanched. Sarah Martinez, my FDA deputy, stepped forward with a thick stack of documents. "We have a court order to seize all research materials related to NX-2477 and its development program." "You can't do this." Davidson slammed his fist on the table. "Do you have any idea what this will do to our stock price?" "Actually, I do." I pulled up another document. "Your company has been artificially inflating projections based on manipulated trial data. That's not just an FDA violation, it's securities fraud." The room fell silent as FBI agents joined the FDA team, beginning their systematic collection of documents and hard drives. $200 million in research, Marcus whispered. 3 years of development. All wasted because you couldn't wait to do it right. I turned to face him directly. The preliminary data showed promise. NX-2477 might have been a breakthrough drug if you completed the proper trials. Instead, you cut corners, hid complications, and almost sent a dangerous compound to market. Davidson found his voice again. "The board will fight this. Our lawyers have already seen the evidence." Sarah held up a USB drive. Every falsified report, every manipulated data set, every email ordering staff to alter results, plus testimony from 3 other researchers who were forced out when they questioned the data. I watched as the reality of their situation finally sank in. The prestigious pharma executives, the celebrated researchers, all brought down by the quiet lab tech they dismissed and demeaned. "Here's what happens next," I announced to the stunned room. "The FDA is suspending all Nexus Pharmaceuticals trials pending a complete investigation. The SEC will be reviewing your financial statements and market communications, and the Justice Department will be particularly interested in those emails about hiding liver toxicity data." Over the next few hours, I watched as federal agents boxed up 2 years of deception. Researchers were interviewed, computers were imaged, and filing cabinets were emptied. Davidson and Marcus were escorted out by FBI agents, their requests for lawyers echoing down the corridors where they'd once walked as kings. One junior researcher, Dr. Lisa Wong, approached me as the dust settled. "I knew something was wrong with the data," she said quietly. "But every time I raised concerns, they shut you down." I finished. "Told you to stay in your lane, trust the senior scientists." She nodded. "How did you do it? Stay quiet for so long, watching them manipulate everything." By remembering what was at stake, I showed her the real patient data from the trials. The adverse reactions, the organ stress markers, the warning signs Nexus had buried. This drug would have hurt people, maybe killed them. Sometimes being underestimated is a small price to pay for preventing that. The aftermath was seismic. Nexus Pharmaceuticals stock plummeted when the investigation became public. Davidson and 3 other executives faced criminal charges for fraud. Marcus turned state's evidence, providing evidence of similar violations in other drug programs. But the real impact came 6 months later, when I testified before Congress about the need for stronger oversight in pharmaceutical research. The problem isn't just one company or one drug, I told the committee. It's a culture that prioritizes speed over safety, profits over patients. New regulations were enacted, requiring more stringent third-party verification of trial data. The FDA's investigation team was expanded, with more undercover operations launched into suspicious drug trials. Lisa Wong now leads a reformed research department at Nexus, under new management and strict FDA supervision. They're developing a modified version of NX-2477, this time following every protocol, documenting every result honestly. My office at the FDA has a new photo on the wall. Me in my old lab tech coat, surrounded by beakers and test tubes. It reminds me that sometimes the best way to expose the truth is to let others think they're hiding it from you. Last week, I received a letter from a pharmaceutical company seeking fast-track approval for their new wonder drug. The CEO's note mentioned their completely transparent research process. I smiled, thinking about my next assignment. Somewhere in another lab, another basic technician is quietly documenting everything, building another case file. Because in the end, it's not about revenge or proving people wrong. It's about protecting patients who will never know how close they came to taking a dangerous drug. It's about ensuring that the medicines people trust with their lives are actually worthy of that trust. The pharmaceutical world learned a valuable lesson: never underestimate anyone in a lab coat, no matter how quiet they seem. Because sometimes the most dangerous person in the room isn't the one making the loudest promises, it's the one silently counting all the times those promises were broken.